We begin with the breaking news in the overdose death of actor Matthew Perry. These sketches are just into our newsroom. They show 2 of the 5 suspects. One of those suspects that you're seeing here, Dr. Salvador Placencia, and the so-called Ketamine Queen, Jasveen Sangha.
The woman accused of supplying beloved Friends star Matthew Perry with a fatal dose of the powerful anesthetic ketamine is accepting responsibility.
Fans are still coming by. Nobody here at the moment, but you can see they've been leaving flowers. We actually saw people crying out here today, and many of them remembering Matthew Perry, not only for his acting, but for his dedication to those really struggling with addiction.
He was a beloved star who made the world laugh. But behind the scenes, Matthew Perry was fighting a battle that never let him go. When investigators dug into his shocking death, they uncovered a dark web of greed, deceit, and betrayal that preyed on his pain. Tonight, we reveal how the people closest to him fueled the addiction that would ultimately claim his life. Hi, I'm Katie Ring, true crime analyst, self-defense instructor, and advocate for victims. And this is Crime House Daily, your weekday true crime companion, a Crime House original powered by Pave Studios. We follow the cases making headlines now, where justice is still unfolding. This is a Night Watch episode bringing you today's biggest crime stories. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel at Crime House Daily so you never miss an episode. This episode discusses active criminal cases and breaking news. The information we share is based on what's publicly available at the time of recording and may change as new evidence comes to light. We aim to inform, not to decide guilt or innocence, so everyone mentioned is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Matthew Perry, a beloved Hollywood actor who's best known for playing Chandler in one of my favorite shows of all time, Friends, died from an overdose in 2023. Now, 5 people are being charged in his death, and the woman who dealt the deadly dose has pleaded guilty. The so-called Ketamine Queen faces up to 65 years in prison, and we're standing by to see what cards are dealt to her. Tonight, we are catching you up on all of the details surrounding the tragic death of actor Matthew Perry. In the 90s, Perry shot to stardom for his role on the hit sitcom Friends. He also went on to have success outside of Friends, receiving Emmy nominations for his work on The West Wing and The Ron Clark Story. Along the way, he became a beloved friend to many and was a passionate advocate for addiction recovery, which was a challenge he personally struggled with throughout his life. In his memoir, Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, Perry wrote, quote, "It is very odd to live in a world where if you died, it would shock people, but surprise no one." Almost a year to the day after that quote, on October 28th, 2023, Matthew Perry sadly lost his battle with addiction when he passed away from a ketamine overdose. Although his death was an accident, the events leading up to it weren't. Investigators uncovered a web of lies, deceit, and criminality. These people took advantage of a man struggling with substance abuse just to line their own pockets. A woman named Jasveen Sangha was at the center of it all. She hid behind a mask of luxury and glamour, but for Matthew Perry and his loved ones, she brought nothing but tragedy. Let's get into it. In 1994, the sitcom Friends hits the air. It becomes insanely popular and turns the cast into superstars. That includes 25-year-old Matthew Perry, who plays the gruff but lovable Chandler Bing. Perry grew up around show business, and he's been acting since he was a teenager, but Friends launches him into the A-list category. Dealing with that kind of fame is hard enough, but in 1997, Perry's life gets even more complicated when he gets into a bad jet skiing accident. He's got at least one serious injury, and he's prescribed Vicodin to manage the pain. Opioids, including painkillers like Vicodin, are extremely addictive, and pretty soon 28-year-old Perry develops a substance abuse disorder. Perry's illness is so bad, the next 3 years of his life feel like a total blur. Later, he says that he doesn't even remember filming seasons 3 through 6 of Friends. His family, friends, and co-stars are seriously worried about him, especially because his overall mental health is getting worse too. Perry starts suffering from severe depression during this period as well, which only makes it harder for him to manage his addiction. For almost the next 2 decades, he's in and out of the hospital for things related to his substance abuse, including pancreatitis and multiple stomach surgeries. At the same time, he's actively seeking help and seems to have a few breakthrough periods. Plus, he doesn't want others to suffer the way he has. And in 2013, 16 years after his accident, Perry converts his home in Malibu into a recovery center. But addiction is powerful, and unfortunately for Matthew Perry, he's struggling to overcome it. In 2018, mixing substances caused his colon to burst, and he fell into a coma for 2 months. When Perry wakes up, he realizes how close to death he was, and he knows he needs to commit to getting better. By 2022, it seems like Perry has found a promising solution: ketamine therapy. In large doses, ketamine can make people feel like they are detached from their body and even cause hallucinations, unconsciousness, and dangerously slow breathing. But in small, controlled doses, ketamine can be an extremely effective antidepressant. It's been approved for medical use to treat substance abuse and other mental health disorders. So Perry decides to try ketamine infusion therapy, and it seems to really help him with his addiction and his depression. After almost 2 years, his doctor tells him that he doesn't need to keep receiving treatment. But addiction still has a powerful grip on Matthew Perry, and as soon as he stops treatment, he starts craving the feeling that ketamine gives him. But he doesn't talk to a doctor. Instead, Perry decides to get it another way and uses his connections to access a growing network of drug dealers. A network led by a celebrity drug dealer named Jasveen Sangha. In August of 2023, Sangha was 40 years old. She grew up in the LA suburb of Calabasas and was raised in what's been described as a respectable family. Her friends call her uplifting, bubbly, and sweet. This charming personality might be what makes her such a powerful drug dealer, because not only does the woman known as the Ketamine Queen supply celebrities with drugs, she hangs out with them too. Over the years, she's been spotted with a variety of celebrities, from DJ Khaled to Charlie Sheen. So when Matthew Perry is looking to score some ketamine, people point him in her direction. To understand how exactly the two enter each other's orbits, we need to introduce another key player in this story, a man named Eric Fleming. Fleming is a former film director and TV producer, and despite having no medical credentials, he's transitioned into a career at a substance abuse treatment center in Bel Air called the Red Door. He works there as a so-called sober living manager, but it doesn't seem like his priority is to actually help people overcome their addictions. Red Door does not have a good reputation. Along with hiring people with questionable credentials, it's owned by 2 people whose previous rehab center was shut down after multiple clients died there. And Red Door seems to be on the same path. In 2021, a patient there named William Cooney died of a fentanyl overdose, and staff members, including Eric Fleming, couldn't explain how he obtained it. Clearly, patients there aren't being looked after the way they should be. After William Cooney died, his ex-wife spoke out about Red Door employees preying on vulnerable people for financial gain and said, quote, "They masked their greed behind labels like addiction specialist, which were really just sober companions who would drive people to buy drugs, doctors who would prescribe anything, and enablers who would stay silent as long as they were paid." It sounds like this was Eric Fleming's real job, not to help people recover, but to feed off of them. One of these people he works with closely is Jasveen Sangha. It seems like Fleming regularly buys drugs from Sangha and sells them to other people. So when his old acquaintance Matthew Perry contacts him in 2023 looking for some ketamine, Fleming knows exactly where to get it. At some point, Perry puts Fleming in touch with his personal assistant, 59-year-old Kenneth Iwamasa. Iwamasa and Fleming start texting, and Fleming immediately launches into his sales pitch. He talks about how good Sangha's drugs are and says that she's legit and only sells to celebrities. Then he offers to give Iwamasa 1 vial of ketamine as a free sample, so Perry could try it and decide whether he wants to buy it. Iwamasa agrees. He brings the sample to Perry's LA home and injects him with it himself, and Perry likes it. After that, Fleming buys 50 more vials from Sangha and sells them to Iwamasa. Iwamasa and Perry get into a regular routine of injections, and over the course of a few weeks, Iwamasa makes about $55,000 worth of ketamine purchases on his boss's behalf. He doesn't buy it all from Eric Fleming, though. Whenever Fleming and Sangha are in short supply, Iwamasa turns to an LA-based doctor named Salvador Plasencia, who gets fake prescriptions for ketamine with the help of another doctor named Mark Chavez. Ketamine is supposed to be dosed with extreme care and administered by a professional. But with all of this being done under the table, there's no regulation around how much of the drug Matthew Perry is taking, and his own unlicensed assistant is giving him the injections. This situation is extremely dangerous. Without a medical professional to oversee his ketamine use, every injection could put Perry's life at risk. Before long, the situation spirals out of control, and Matthew Perry loses his life. At 8:30 a.m. on October 28, 2023, Matthew Perry's assistant, Kenneth Iwamasa, injects his boss with at least 3 shots of ketamine. About 4 hours later, Perry asks for another shot, and Iwamasa gives it to him. 40 minutes after that, Perry asks for another one. After Iwamasa gives Perry that final shot, he gets ready to run some errands, but before he leaves, he turns on the hot tub so Perry can relax while he's gone. Sometime around 4 p.m., he returns and finds Perry lying limp in the hot tub. It seems like he tries to pull Perry out and resuscitate him, but when that doesn't work, he calls 911. Unfortunately, there's nothing the first responders can do. Matthew Perry has unfortunately passed away. It doesn't take long for the news of his death to spread. Perry's family, as well as his former friends' co-stars, each release public statements expressing their utter devastation. Fans also show an outpouring of grief. Some people even set up a memorial in New York City outside the building where Perry's friend's character lived. Meanwhile, the LA County Medical Examiner performs an autopsy and determines that Perry died from acute effects of ketamine, in addition to other contributing factors such as drowning, coronary artery disease, and effects from buprenorphine, a medication used to treat opioid use disorder. But even though nobody killed Matthew Perry directly, it doesn't rule out foul play, namely by the people who gave him the drugs. When Jasveen Sangha hears the news, she goes into damage control mode. She calls Eric Fleming on an encrypted messaging app, Signal, to talk about distancing themselves from the situation. That same day, Sangha also changes her Signal settings to automatically delete her messages with Fleming. And she tells Fleming to delete all of their messages too. She's right to be scared because the authorities are looking at Matthew Perry's case very closely. They know that Perry had been treated at a ketamine clinic, but based on how long it takes ketamine to leave someone's system, there's no way the drugs that killed him came from those sessions. And the drug levels in Perry's blood were so high, it's clear that it wasn't administered by a medical professional. So the police are pretty sure that he got the drugs illegally. Now, the question is, where did he get it? In April 2024, about 6 months after Perry dies, the LAPD and DEA launch a joint investigation. They're familiar with how A-list drug deals are typically conducted. Usually, members of celebrity entourages, like assistants and other employees, help facilitate them. So investigators start looking into Perry's Hollywood connections to figure out how he bought the drugs and who may have been involved in the scheme. One of the people they talk to is a woman named Brooke Mueller, who used to be married to the actor Charlie Sheen. Like her ex-husband, Mueller has had her fair share of substance use issues. She's been in rehab, and she was friends with Eric Fleming, who works at the shady rehab center, the Red Door. But by the time investigators talk to her, that friendship seems to have ended. Back in 2021, Mueller's boyfriend needed addiction treatment, and she recommended the Red Door, but soon she regrets it. Because Mueller's boyfriend was none other than William Cooney, the patient who died of the fentanyl overdose at the Red Door. The incident may have created a rift between Fleming and Mueller, and when investigators talk to her about Matthew Perry's death, Mueller points them to Fleming's drug operation with Jasveen Sangha. Once the authorities learn about Eric Fleming's drug ring with Jasveen Sangha, the investigation into Matthew Perry's death moves pretty quickly. Some of the most incriminating evidence comes from phone records that they obtained from Fleming and Sangha, whose communications weren't as secure as they had thought. Sangha didn't seem to realize that even if you delete signal messages from your phone, investigators can still subpoena the company for them. This gives them a massive trail to follow, which eventually leads them to Perry's assistant, Kenneth Iwamasa, and to the two doctors, Salvador Plasencia and Mark Chavez. It's clear that the dealers were selling the drugs to Perry with no concern for his safety. A text from one of the doctors said, quote, "I wonder how much this moron will pay." And they have a lot more than just a paper trail to follow. A few months before Perry's death, Sangha's home had been raided as part of another investigation. At the time, they found 79 vials of ketamine, as well as a huge stash of meth, mushrooms, cocaine, and prescription drugs. When all 5 suspects are arrested in August 2024, Sangha catches the most charges, including 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine, 1 count of maintaining a drug-involved premises, 1 count of possession with intent to distribute methamphetamine, 1 count of possession with intent to distribute ketamine, and 5 counts of distribution of ketamine. After the arrests are made, U.S. Attorney Martin Estrada speaks at a press conference and says, quote, "These defendants cared more about profiting off of Mr. Perry than caring for his well-being. Drug dealers selling dangerous substances are gambling with other people's lives over greed. This case, along with our many other prosecutions of drug dealers who caused death, send a clear message that we will hold drug dealers accountable for the deaths they cause." As of August 18th, 2025, Sangha has agreed to a plea deal. She also admits to selling ketamine to a man named Cody McClary, who died from an overdose in 2019. In order to avoid a federal trial for Matthew Perry's death, she officially pleaded guilty on September 3rd to some modified charges, which are 1 count of maintaining a drug-involved premises, 3 counts of distribution of ketamine, and 1 count of distribution of ketamine resulting in death or serious bodily injury. But this case isn't over yet. We're still watching it closely to see what kind of sentence Jasveen Sangha will receive. She's facing up to 65 years in prison, but her lawyer says that Sangha has, quote, "accepted responsibility" and deserves a lesser sentence. But it remains to be seen if the judge will take that into consideration when deciding her punishment. Sangha's sentencing is scheduled for December 10th, 2025. Kenneth Iwamasa, Eric Fleming, Salvador Plasencia, and Mark Chavez have all pleaded guilty to various charges as well and will be sentenced soon. They've all admitted to participating in an innocent man's death. Now, the biggest question left is what kind of punishment they'll face. We'll be sure to bring you any major updates to this story as it develops. And as always, be sure to follow us at Crime House 24/7 for breaking news. What do you think of today's case? Drop your theories in the comments. And follow us at Crime House 24/7 on TikTok and Instagram. And subscribe on YouTube at Crime House Daily. For ad-free listening, join Crime House Plus on Apple Podcasts. You stay curious, and I'll stay on the case. See you next time.